stay in school to graduate and have an opportunity to overcome the cycle of poverty in which these kids mostly live. We've been, I have to say, fortunate again. We have a lot of in-kind support. ACE Relocation Services has helped deliver our bins on Friday. Berry Aviation has bought the 38,000 sacks required to provide the food. The food we provide is rich in calcium and protein as much as possible because we know that's brain food. We're hoping that the food we provide, the 10 items, will help these kids just be able to move forward with their lives. We started this year with our first delivery on September the 16th. It takes a little time to sort out which kids came back, which kids still need help. Do we have new students? Have these students moved from one school to the other? School fuel doesn't do that work. We're reliant on cafeteria personnel, on parent liaison, on teachers at the schools who work with these children, and parent liaison make it their job to find out about their living circumstances. It just takes a while to put that together, but we've kicked off already this year. So we're excited to be able to do that.
30 seconds.
I am happy to have any questions that you might have. Oh, I should say, we asked for $35,475, which represents 165 children at $215 a year. Not a very big investment per child, makes a huge difference in their life, but at 1,100 kids, it does add up.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we will start the 5-minute question and answer period.
So as of today, how many kids do you have?
We packed Tuesday this week because, and delivered to today because they're out of school Friday. We started with 847 children. That's about what we started with last year, but by the end of October, we'll probably be at 1,000. The high school has had significant changes in leadership there. So kicking off our high school program is taking longer than we thought. When the principal left, so did a lot of her plans. So it's taking a little longer to get that program started.
Thank you, Diane. I was curious, you mentioned it's per year, and you talked about some of the food program during the school day. Are you also providing weekend meals for the children as well too, or is it sort of a Monday through Friday distribution?
No, we actually only provide on Friday.
Okay.
On Thursdays, and on Friday it gets delivered to the school and they get it in their backpack. If they're out, on Thursday, then we deliver on Thursday. We work with the school calendar. There are 10 items: milk, chicken bites, some fruit, not fresh. We'd really like to be able to do fresh, but that doesn't work. And I didn't say, but should, that the school district provides 2 breakfast and lunch free to every student in the district. Oh, hallelujah. We were really happy when they began that, because now every student goes to the cafeteria on the same footing. There isn't any question about who gets to eat and who doesn't. So we know those kids can get at least 2 meals a day at school, which makes having a weekend food even more impactful.
Exactly. So you're supplementing for the days that aren't available to the students. Excellent.
So I got a question. I'm a little confused. It says 35K plus will provide for 165 students, the same number who received the school fuel program at Travis Elementary last year. But you help over 1,000 kids?
Yes, there are we serve 9 schools in the district. We serve all the elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and this year the high school. And that just happened to be,
So does that number represent the high school students now, or what? What is
we're
that?
only doing freshmen. We're doing the students who were in 8th grade last year who
Uh-huh.
still help this year up to 100, about 100. That's about how many there were in 8th grade in the 2 middle schools that were moving to 9th grade. We don't know yet exactly how many of them are still, in the district. And like I said, we've had the high schools had changes in personnel. It's made our job a little bit harder. So, and the school works really hard to protect kids' privacy. That's,
Uh-huh.
we never meet the kids. We hear stories, we get letters from them, but we don't get to interact with them, except last year we did have 2 panels from the middle school where we talked about our high school program. And that was really the first time we'd had a face-to-face meeting with any of the recipients. It was pretty exciting.
Okay, so the 165 number represents what?
165 represents how many children you can feed for a year on weekends for $35,475.
Oh, okay, I think I get it. All right, okay. I don't have it in front of me. Is this the same amount that you requested last year?
No, last year we asked to support 100 students, and that was $21,500.
Okay,
5 minutes.
and that's because you extended it to the 9th graders or what?
Yes, that, and during the pandemic, our contributions and support was really solid. This year's been a little bit harder. I don't know if it's a result of the pandemic now having an effect on some of our contributors, or perhaps the downturn in the economy. I don't know, but we're having more trouble this year.
Get more trouble getting
Funding.
funding. Okay, all right.
Okay, and I guess I'll just have to call it so that we're fair to everyone. So the 5 minutes is up. And so we will go on to the next presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, let's see. And next agency is CASA. The program is advocacy for San Marcos abused and neglected children. And the presenters are Tricia Schneider and Nicole Solis Douglas.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tricia Schneider, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at CASA of Central Texas. CASA is an acronym, our name, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. And we are largely a volunteer-based organization, and we train and support community volunteers who are advocates for children from the San Marcos community who have experienced abuse and neglect and have been removed from their homes for their own protection. They're removed from their homes by the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, specifically the Child Protective Services Division, also known as CPS. So when a child is in an unsafe home, CPS makes a decision to remove that child from the home, and there's a judge that oversees all of the court and legal proceedings that involve those parents. And while the court is interacting with the parents, and CPS is trying to provide helpful services so that the parents can provide eventually a safe and stable home for their children, CASA is appointed locally as what's referred to as a guardian ad litem. And that means that we are charged by the court to represent the child's best interests and work to make sure that those children are ultimately placed in safe and permanent homes. So we're advocating for children's medical needs, their mental health care, their education, their housing needs, their long-term connection with family and community, and many other things, just as if a protective parent would be doing when they are involved in that child's life. So CASA is serving that group of children and youth from San Marcos. And what you don't see in our proposal is a further explanation of our requested dollar amount. It's $20,275, and that is derived by basically a funding need that we had requested from the CDBG program with San Marcos, $60,000, and that's the difference between that full need of $60,000 and what was awarded through the CDBG program. So we've had a lot of ups and downs in terms of funding and the number of children that are in Child Protective Services care. And so what we're really ultimately and really trying to do is maintain that $60,000 level of funding so we can continue to support the children from San Marcos. So the services that we are proposing here are the services that you know of with CASA, and we'd like to be able to continue to do that at a level that is consistent with the levels that we were performing prior to the pandemic. So I will end there. I'd like to hand off to my colleague, Nicole. I wanted to introduce her to you and you all to her, because you will be seeing more of her in the future times.
Thank you. Again, my name is Nicole Douglas. I am the Director of Development with CASA of Central Texas, and I briefly wanted to go over a new or somewhat new initiative that our program, CASA of Central Texas, is collaborating with the Child Protective Services system and other groups that are involved in the children's lives, called Collaborative Family Engagement. This is, again, an innovative family finding partnership between agencies that are servicing children under the child welfare system. And what we are finding is that the 4 elements that are core to this program are collaboration, cultivating, and convening, and those connections to the children in the child welfare system, so that they can maintain the connections to those who may have been in their lives and can continue to support them throughout the process while Child Protective Service is involved.
30 seconds.
And so we are learning that this is a very valued program, and we just continue to make efforts to find those connections for the children that we serve in the city of San Marcos.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we'll start the 5-minute question and answer period. Ruben, I'm sorry, I can't unmute you, but you're not, we can't hear you. Ruben, we're not able to hear you. Hey,
How many kids are being currently served by the program?
43, I think.
43 is what we are proposing with these dollars. Over the last year, approximately 200 or just slightly under 200 San Marcos children in total.
200 last year?
Over roughly the last 12 months, yes.
And only 43 kids so far?
43 is what we are proposing to serve with this grant and with these grant funds. So it would be comparable to saying 43 of the 200 some that we served over the last year. And we can count those children uniquely. So that's why it might seem like a small number. We still anticipate in total serving roughly each year in San Marcos, it's around 120 to 140 children on a more normal year outside of the pandemic, or at least pre-pandemic.
And how are the other children serviced? If you're able to serve just 43, who cared for the other ones?
The CDBG grant will support a large part of those children. And then we also get funding from Hays County, other government sources, and private contributions from foundations and individuals.
Oh, okay. So this is specifically for 43 San Marcos kids.
43 uniquely counted San Marcos kids that would be credited, if you will, toward the Human Services Grant Program.
Why are they uniquely counted?
Well, because we don't double count. If we report 43 children under this grant, those children will not be reported under the San Marcos CDBG grant.
I understand. And these children are the decision has been made to permanently remove them from the home. It's not like foster.
It's at the stages that we're involved. Most of the children are in the temporary custody of CPS, while the judge and the parents are working together with CPS to try to improve things. There are about 10% of our cases, well, on an annual basis, 10% of our cases will turn over to permanent custody, where those children are in long-term foster care, is a more layperson's terminology. And those children, those youth, end up growing up in foster care through their teenage years. And we continue to remain appointed to those youth and help prepare them for independent living as young adults.
Oh, okay.
And these kids come to you 100% court appointed?
Yes, our local judges are the ones who make the decision of whether or not to appoint CASA once the children have been removed from their parents' homes by CPS. So our district judges, there's a specialized court that hears only child protective services cases. There's an associate judge that oversees that court and its proceedings, and then a few of our other local judges. But for the most part, it's our district judges and the child protection court judge.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you can answer this in 20 words or less, but what sets these kids aside from other children that a decision is made that they need CASA support? Are they particularly at risk? Are they have no relatives to advocate for them, or what's?
Each case is going to be different. For every case that's in front of a judge, that they're having, the judge is ultimately having to make the decision about the child's welfare and their long-term placement, whether they're going to be returned to their parents for the permanent care, or to be made available for adoption by new families, or to be placed with relatives, kin. There's the judge who's making that decision. So it's all really kind of in the mind of those judges, and they have to make the tough decision and evaluate based on the case circumstances that are presented to them. We've surveyed our judges, and they will point to complexities of the case, such as when there are siblings involved that have varying needs and maybe are not placed together. They are placed in separate foster homes. CASA can be extremely valuable in those circumstances. If a child has particular mental health needs, again, that would be a case that judges might appoint us to. Nicole has been a case supervisor with us coming from our program side, working directly with the children and youth. Nicole, can you elaborate further on trying to give insight as to when judges decide to appoint us?
We're at 5 minutes, y'all.
So it sounds like they're more complicated. In a nutshell, it's a little more
Yes.
complicated, a little more to it.
Sure,
Okay.
that would be very fair to say, yes.
Okay, and I hate to cut it
Definitely.
off, but we are at 5 minutes. Although, we had a little snafu. So Nicole, why don't you go ahead and complete the thought? Sorry, I'll bow out for a
Oh,
second.
good.
Thank you. Just kind of concluding that thought is that, the child's voice is amplified with a CASA volunteer being appointed to the child. In these cases, we have a parent who's assigned attorney, we have the judge, and then we have CPS who's represented by an attorney. The child is appointed an attorney as well, but like most attorneys do, their job, they advocate for what the child or their client would want. What makes us unique in our position as guardian ad litem is not only determining what the child wants, but maybe what's in their best interest at that time. So I think that becomes a key valuable asset to the judge in determining what is in the best interest of the child, not only based on the child's wants, because as we can all know that children are resilient, and despite the circumstances that they've come from, they often want to return home, and it may not be the best time for that to happen.
Right. Yeah, no, I can see how every kid could benefit from your services, but obviously that's not practical. So I was just wondering with the set them aside from others. Thanks. I get it.
Okay, sorry to end it, but that's our 5 minutes. And so we will go on to the next presentation. Next, we have Hayes Caldwell Women's Center, and we have Carrie Bormans presenting the non-residential family violence and transitional housing program.
Hi, thank you so much. Is it okay if I share my screen with you guys?
I'll need to make you a co-host.
Okay, well,
Second. Oh, that's it. It's totally fine. I just need to switch you around.
okay.
Okay, and I think you should be able to share your screen now.
All right. Can you guys see what I'm seeing here?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so we are Hayes Caldwell Women's Center, and we work with local victims of family violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and child abuse. We have an emergency shelter here on site, and we have several different programs, but the first one I'm going to be presenting about is the family violence and our new transitional housing program. So last year, we provided services to over 800 victims of family violence, and this year we expect to serve 898. And of those, about 350 are going to be residents of San Marcos. So we provided last year 7,753 safe nights of shelter in our emergency family shelter. We have been operating at capacity for over 2 years, so we're actually putting some of our shelter clients in hotels. And as a result of that, we're expanding our shelter. We're building into our attic to add some additional private rooms, and we're in the process of doing that right now. In addition to our shelter, what's new for us this year is our transitional housing program, Marla's Place, which is basically it's an apartment complex with 18 different units. It's designed for primarily women and children. When they're leaving shelter, they're often not ready to sustain independent housing. So they can stay at this apartment complex here on site for up to 18 months. And as of today, we have 14 families living there, women with their children primarily. This facility includes an on-site early Head Start, and it's custom built for children, for an encouraging environment for children. The entire facility is gated and monitored with a security system, which is something that's needed for victims of family violence. So something that wasn't included in our grant is just some of these, what we call our outcomes, when we survey our clients. So one client, when surveyed, spoke of her advocate by saying that Patricia never gave up on me. Months after I called HCWC, she referred me for counseling with Chantal, who is also persistent in calling. They were both so patient with me. I don't know if I would be alive today had I returned to my home during COVID lockdown with my abuser. I'm so thankful for HCWC and everything they do. Another client said, Sarah is very caring. She listens and tries hard to provide me with services and information that I need for my situation. I'm so thankful that you are there for women and children in their time of need. I was terrified when I first came into your office and was so glad there was a group of people who could help me figure out the next steps. Yet another client has said, HCWC helped me and my children in more ways than I could have imagined. It opened my eyes to the extent of what we were experiencing and has given me the strength and support to fight for a better life for all of us. I will forever be grateful for the services that have benefited my whole family. So I just kind of wanted y'all to hear what some of our actual family violence and transitional housing clients are saying about the program. When they are surveyed about the services that they're receiving here. And that concludes my presentation for the family violence portion.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll start the 5-minute question and answer session now.
Question, after the 18 months, if they haven't found a stable living environment, then what happens?
Well, so this is new. It's only been up and running for a few months now, but that 18 months is not a hard deadline. We can extend that a little bit if needed, but all of the residents are working with a case manager on site. So we have programming in place where we have set up goals for them to meet along the way, and a case manager and advocate working with them to help find sustainable housing.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Are they required to pay rent? I mean, if they have the means, you know, I mean, some of these battered wives have jobs.
Yes. We do have we were originally going to do it based on income, a certain percentage of income with no income requirement. But we do instead now have a flat rate of rent depending on the size of the unit. And that's, again, a rule that's not hard and fast. So if someone doesn't have a job and has no way of paying that rent, that doesn't mean they can't be a resident, but we are charging a small rent.
Okay. And it's like a regular apartment, or
the rent is not, I mean, it's I don't know the exact number, but I think it's $100 for a 1-bedroom, $200 for a 2-bedroom, but the unit itself is like a regular apartment. It looks like an apartment and is set up like an apartment complex.
wow, that's really reasonable. That's great. But, you know, if they haven't worked, or, you know, that doesn't mean they're not eligible, is what you're saying. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And we're including some programs in the facility for residents with job training, resume building, things of that nature. So if a resident doesn't have a job, we're hoping that by the time she moves out, she will, or at least have the skills to pursue that.
Oh, right. Otherwise, they're back in the same crappy situation, I suspect.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess you choose limited resources, lots of people in need. I suspect it's on a as needed basis, like a priority type. How do you prioritize who gets an apartment and who doesn't?
Well, I don't know.
I'm sure there's a lot of people wanting that sort of support.
Yes, and I can say that our residents would also meet qualifications for our shelter. So it's somebody who has experienced family violence.
Right.
A lot of them are being referred by us from our shelter. But I think basically we're prioritizing by need. If there's a resident or a family member that the person can stay with, and then we have another applicant who just has no one or
No
no
one,
there,
and
that
it's more
person,
volatile or something, and
right.
so
So-
they don't have to be in your shelter, a resident of your shelter prior to being qualified for this other transitional housing.
Correct. Most are, but it's not an
Right.
ultimate requirement.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay. And I'm sorry, how many apartments are there?
18 units and 14 are currently filled.
And the other ones are empty because what, they're not built yet, or?
No, they're built. We just opened in August, or I'm sorry, July. So we're staggering move-ins so that not everyone's in at the exact same moment.
Yeah, because I'm thinking there's no way that's gonna go empty.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. They'll
Yeah.
be filled shortly.
And are you partnering with other organizations? Because I'd certainly like you guys to contact the Texas Workforce Solutions, Texas Workforce Commission, because there's childcare services and job skills training and opportunities to go back to school. And, there's a whole array of services. So if you haven't reached out to them, please do.
Definitely, thank you. And we are currently partnered with Community Action. They're providing the Head Start that's on site. So we have childcare for kiddos in that age range, but our advocate and case manager is also working with other resources. So yes.
We're at 5 minutes.
And how do you accommodate the kids for school? Because they previously have been to a different school, and how does all that happen?
Well, we do, the bus comes here, and so if a student is going to school in San Marcos, they of course have access to transportation services. But in terms, we're not personally taking the kids to school. It is the parent is responsible for that.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll have to cut off there for this program. And so we will roll into the next program, which is Hayes Caldwell Women's Center. And this program is Roxanne's House, and it's a child abuse program, and it'll be presented by Carrie Bormans as well.
Wonderful, thank you. So Roxanne's House is our children's advocacy center where we serve children who have experienced child abuse and their secondary survivors, so their protective parent. And this coming year, we expect to serve 611 children and 453 adults. That number goes up every year. Of those clients we serve, 154 children and 90 adults will be residents of San Marcos. Last year, we recorded 533 forensic interviews. So that is when a person interviews a child who has experienced child abuse. And that happens here on site by a trained forensic interviewer. And law enforcement and CPS is watching via video from another room. The idea of this is that it's a child-friendly facility. And this way, the child does not have to repeat their story and over. They're telling it one time and able to be heard by the people that need to hear it. When surveyed last year, these are some more quotes coming from our clients, which is always helpful to hear. One protective parent of a Roxanne's House client said of her child's experience, the amount of safety from the interview and counseling was immediate. The respect and safety she felt really helped her open up. And another parent said, I have noticed my daughter is more engaged with the family in expressing how she feels to me. And a child herself said, when surveyed, I'm glad to be back in counseling. It really helps. And another said, I'm learning new coping skills to help me when I am stressed or anxious. So the counseling and the advocacy that kids receive at Roxanne's House really can be life-changing. As I'm sure most of you know, if you experience abuse at such an early age, it can have life-altering consequences. So our motivation is to reach the children early and really make a difference with counseling, with advocacy, and getting them in a safe environment so that they can go on to live a normal, happy, healthy life. And that's pretty much all I've got for our child abuse program.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll start the 5-minute Q&A period now.
So what if they wanted, what if the protective parent wants to get back into the relationship? You know, I mean, the assumption is the abuser is the male and the female is the protective, or it could be, I don't want to sound sexist, I mean, whatever role, whatever parent is designated as the protective parent. How does that
Well, of course, we have no control over that. The parents are also receiving advocacy. So they're meeting with a trained counselor or advocate as well. A lot of times it's not necessarily a partner that is the abuser. It could be a trusted family friend, an uncle, someone else in the child's environment. So it's not always necessarily another parent. But a lot of the kids that we're working with have been initially referred through law enforcement. So depending on the case, of course, this varies with every child, but very often the abuser is also being pursued by law enforcement. So there could be a case pending. If the perpetrator is obviously found guilty, they're looking at jail time. So it all kind of depends on the situation, but it isn't always another parent who is the abuser.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But and it's the majority of kids are referred by law enforcement?
A lot of them are. The forensic interview is the first step if a child is referred by law enforcement or CPS. And then counseling takes place after that.
And it's any kind of abuse? I mean,
It's primarily physical or sexual abuse.
right, well, those are the two primary, you know, right. So what's the follow-up after they're involved with your program? There's got to be with the follow-up.
Well,
Depend on the situation, or?
it does. If a child is going to end up testifying in court, they'll of course have access to counseling with us, but we also have what we call court school, where we're kind of preparing them for court. We have advocates that can go with them, so that they're not just out on their own. So the follow-up also kind of depends on the case. The counseling generally lasts 6 months, but it can go longer when appropriate.
They don't live at it's called Roxanne House, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's not a residential facility.
I didn't think so. Okay, okay. Or do they come, like, I mean, how much time is involved? I'm sure there's a lot of work to be done doing this, but is it like an hour a day or 8 hours a day, or is it
Per child?
Yeah,
Well, the forensic interview could take anywhere from an hour to several hours. Counseling is typically once a week, every week, but that also kind of depends on the child's schedule. So we have counselors that stay past regular work hours or school hours to accommodate kids that are going to school. And then if a child prefers telehealth or Zoom, then our counselors can also do that with them. But it's typically an hour at a time, once a week, every week for several months.
for counseling.
Correct, yes.
Okay. I understand. And it's just the kid and whoever's interviewing the kid, right? The protected parent isn't in the room or anything influencing
Correct. Yes.
anything, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's gonna be an eye opener for some of them.
Have 5 minutes, y'all.
Okay, so that's our 5-minute Q&A session for that program. We have one more from Hayes Caldwell Women's Center. It's the Sexual Assault and Abuse Program, and Carrie Bormans will be presenting this one as well.
Okay. On average, Hayes Caldwell Women's Center receives about 500 helpline calls about sexual assault each year. Last year, we responded to 74 visits at local hospitals. That is when a person arrives at a hospital having gone through a sexual assault. The hospital calls us and we send out an advocate. So 74 last year is actually pretty low. We've been into the hundreds prior to last year, and we think the pandemic affected our numbers a bit, and we expect that number to go up this year. Heart team calls are picking up. We expect to serve about 762 victims of sexual assault next year, and of those, about 283 will be residents of San Marcos. One client receiving counseling from for sexual assault said of her counselor, "She's the first counselor that I honestly feel safe talking to." Another said, "I am so glad this place exists. Pearl is an amazing therapist and has taught me so much. I have grown in so many ways and become more self-aware." So we have counselors who are specifically trained to work with victims of sexual assault, and we've, just like we do with all of our clients, we interview or survey those clients after they've been receiving services here. So we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about our sexual assault counselors, and it's really made a difference in terms of coping and just overall healthiness and happiness in our clients' lives. The other point that I talked about, our heart team calls with our sexual assault program, that's a big component of this program. Because that's the first place that a person often interacts with us is at the hospital. We want to make sure that our advocates are there when a victim arrives, and they can kind of start their path to healing right then and there when they show up at the hospital for that exam. And that wraps up our sexual assault program.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's start the question and answer period for this program now.
So with this program, y'all actually go to the hospital to counsel with the victim of any age?
Yes, at any age, absolutely.
And then after counseling, will you then make an assessment if they would be candidates for the Roxanne House, or if they would have to go into the shelter that y'all have?
Yes, and of course, it depends on the age. So if it's a child that presents at the hospital, then that is a client that would move to Roxanne's House. An adult would be through our either our non-residential program if they're looking for just counseling and advocacy, or if there's a safety issue and that person may need shelter, then through our shelter.
How many active cases do you have? And how many counselors do you have?
I don't know the number of current active cases. We have about probably 8 counselors. Those that are specifically for sexual assault, I believe, are 3.
So the hospital calls you? I mean, the hospital calls you each and every time that there's I mean, you work with the hospital off, they changed the name. The one Drive Hospital?
Yes, yeah, so we foster relationships with all of the local emergency rooms in San Marcos as well as all of Hayes and Caldwell County. So yes, there's a specific kind of nurse examiner that has to perform what we call a rape kit or a sexual assault forensic exam. When a client appears at the hospital, they call us, and we staff as well as trained volunteers. We take what we call a backup phone shift. So if I'm on call, I have my phone on me 24/7. And when I get that call, I immediately go to the hospital and meet with the victim and stay with him or her until that process is over.
Okay, so the hospital says, we have this service available. Do you want it? Is that how the conversation kind of goes?
You know, I think they call us regardless. I'm not sure if they ask the person ahead of time if they want us there. If we show up and they obviously don't want us there, we leave. Of course, that's completely up to the person experiencing the crime, but yes, we're there for everyone.
Wow. So 600 victims a year?
Yes, about that, yeah. We receive it, yeah, about 500 helplines specifically about sexual assault each year.
And you have how many people, how many volunteers? How many people doing this?
It's mostly staff. There have been periods in our history where volunteers have been trained for Heart Team, and we have some dedicated volunteers. They do have to go through a pretty extensive 40-hour training course. Right now, I believe our Heart Team is 100% staff. But if you're interested in volunteering, we can certainly get you trained.
And how many people do you have on staff for that?
We have about 50. Now, once you've been here at HCWC for a certain number of years, you're taken off of that rotation unless you want to be. So it's divided up between about probably about 40 of us.
Okay, all right, because pretty busy, unfortunately. And you serve just Hayes County or?
Hayes and Caldwell. The majority of our sexual assault clients.
That's why you're called the Hayes Caldwell. Got it.
Yes.
Sorry.
We're at 5 minutes.
Okay,
so
then
much
we
for your
will
time.
stop there. Thank you very much for your presentations. And now I'll turn it back over to Joanne.
Okay, we'll now hold discussions among board members on programs, agencies, and applications for the purpose of clarification, comparison, evaluation, and assessment. This discussion is public, however, it is only among board members. The time is meant to be free flow of conversation, but please make your comments succinct to allow time for all board members to share if they wish. This discussion will be facilitated by Carol Griffith, Housing and Community Development Manager. Carol, you have the floor.
Okay, so of course, I always ask the same question, but I think I'll start with it again. And that is, what makes these presentations memorable for you? What stands out about these organizations that really helps you remember them as each program, since we have 36 of them overall?
My comments tonight will be short and sweet because I feel that all five are necessary and should be a part of the fabric of our community. So I don't have anything that, the one thing that sticks out is that they're needed, unfortunately, because we do have these issues here in San Marcos and the Caldwell area. So there's nothing that I can say over one, they're all needed. School fuel, I think it was when they first started, I partnered with sorority at Texas State, and we raised money for them. Again, because that was a service that was needed at that time, and we wanted to be a part of what they were doing. So I guess that's the end of my statement. I said it'd be real quick this time. I'm just so thankful that they're here and that they offer these services. I've had friends go through CASA. I mean, not CASA, but the Hayes County Women's Center, and just a lifesaver for them because of what they were going through, where their family and friends couldn't help. They came to your facility for a safe haven. I've had someone go through the Roxanne House that was very close to me. And because I saw her before she went to Roxanne's house, I was able to see her after and see her now. And just what the services that you offered her really helped. And from my understanding, she goes back just to say thank you and to allow you to see that, you know, she's okay. So I guess that's it.
Well, I will say that all of the organizations, their side, I think that the work that they do speaks for itself. CASA, I applaud you for being there. It is a very difficult job that you guys do. No one case is the same. It takes all hands on deck to assist that child or children. And I applaud you for the work, and I know the effort that you take to keep children together, and then even in cases that are very difficult, working with all parties to try and get that child back to that family environment if you can. You know, the volunteers that you guys recruit, they're just awesome. I can't say enough about that. And Hayes County Women's, the shelter, so much. We don't have enough shelters, first of all. And then women right now, there are a lot of challenges for women. And I know that the numbers are going up for you guys. You know, I know you guys you've partnered with Southside Community Center before. I know San Marcos PD knocks on your door frequently. I hope and I'm prayerful that you will stay around and that we will be able to continue to renew with whatever we get. The money is small this time, but my prayer is that we'll be able to support you however we can. So keep doing what you're doing.
I just want to reinforce what Carol and Mary said. Each program tonight was very specific. CASA dealt with legal representation for kids that are abused. Roxanne House helped them psychologically and physically recover. All these programs are essential to the program, to the community in San Marcos. I personally worked with the Hayes County Women's Center, referred several clients, and those people are now today married, doing extremely well. It's horrendous what happens to these kids. And we, in some way, there isn't a lot of money this year, but we really do support these groups and try to get them what we can. We need to prioritize. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, you're coming through clearly.
First time. I've been kicked out 6-7 times.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I swear Carol's doing it.
It's not me.
I'm blaming. So in general, I support every single program that make presentations tonight. I've seen the difference that it's made in people's lives. People that were, I hate to say it, I just turned 63. The people that were 16, 15, 14 are now 30 years of age. And they're survivors because of the Women's Center, because of CASA, because of the other groups we heard tonight. The food program, I got to tell you, during the pandemic, I had cameras stationed outside my place. I would put 50 meals out there. I had to increase it to 100. Then I had to increase it to 150. I don't know what's going on, but with inflation and the tightening dollar, people are just not able to afford food. So I want to commend the lady that made the presentation. She made a good presentation. And I hope we can support that program. It's not about the numbers, it's about feeding people. Okay, it's about some of the numbers. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I feel like my feedback is very much me too, which feels a little bit just adding on to the thing. But, you know, for the presentation that we saw tonight, it's the most vulnerable parts of our community, I think, where the support is going. You know, families who have been abused, small children who need food and support in those situations. I think it's, you know, it was just a really great lineup of organizations to support. And I sort of mimic everyone's feelings here in that these are some of the most important programs I think we can support within our communities. I hate to hear in every single program that we're actually servicing more and more folks because the demand is high, not because, you know, we've been sort of shortchanging those within the community. So hopefully, as we continue to sort of fund these programs, we can find ways to make those numbers come down over time.
That's optimistic. But I mean, Ruben said it's, I'm not an optimist. Essential is the word that comes to mind. I mean, they're all essential. So that's what's memorable, is they're all very essential. So,
yeah, I was gonna add, Allison, to like what you said. Those of us who work in social services like always say that our goal is like, we hope one day we don't have a job, that these social issues don't exist in our communities anymore, so we don't have to arrange services to address this. So I echo everything everyone has said, and I regret that I missed the first presentation. I'll have to go back and watch the recording, but for the others, I'm pretty familiar with CASA and the Hayes Caldwell Women's Center, and know that they have a long and strong record of doing good work in our communities. And so I mean, they speak for themselves in everything that they do. So I strongly support them, and am glad that we're able to help in some ways. So thank you for those presentations.
so professionally done, you know, I mean, that's, and carried out. It's impressive. Especially for, you know, a city, you know, we're not Austin, so.
So are there any other comments? I think everybody has spoken, so I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Joanne.
Thank you, Carol. We'll now have time to receive updates from board members on activities since the last meeting. Does any board member have an update for the group? All right, we will move to the next item, which is future agenda items. Board members may provide requests for discussion items for a future agenda in accordance with the board's approval approved bylaws. No further discussion can be held related to topics proposed until they are posted on a future agenda in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act. Does any board member want to request an item for a future agenda? Thank you. We will now move on to the agenda item called question and answering sessions with the public and press. This is an opportunity for the press and public to ask questions related to items on this agenda. Staff, is anyone present is anyone present in person, online, or by phone to speak to this agenda item?
No,
Thank you.
although, let me give the people who presented an opportunity, like you can ask a question about the agenda if you had any questions specifically.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tricia.
I don't have a question, but I would just like to comment that I am, and so I find this such an interesting process because I am here cheering on my colleagues from Hayes Caldwell Women's Center and from School Fuel because we all work together. And I just think so highly of them and I so appreciate them and all of the good work that they are doing too. And so it's an interesting position when we're here competing for limited dollars, but I just wanted you all on the committee to know that we are great partners with each other in the tapestry of social services.
Thank you for your comment. Were there any more that needed to comment, Carol?
Any questions? Okay, nope, go ahead.
Thank you all for your participation. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? The motion's made by,
Allison.
thank you, Allison. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Ruben. Ruben, we hope you start feeling better. I see you're in the hospital.
Yeah, I'll be here for a little while.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. I will now adjourn the meeting at 8:15 p.m. and we'll see you next Thursday.
Yeah, everyone.
Have a good weekend. Bye. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.